Alright, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to practice using figurative language. Alright, so let me start out. Why should I learn this? Well, for your task, you must include at least 3 examples of figurative language to become an expert. Not to mention, it's also a great literary tool to learn to become an overall better writer. Now, what are our goals for this lesson? At the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify different forms of figurative language and create your own sentences using figurative language. So let's start with the basics. First of all, figurative language is any type of writing that appeals to the senses. So it enhances the reader's experience. Some examples of figurative language include metaphor. A metaphor is when you compare two things. A simile. Now, a simile is comparing two things as well, but what's different about a simile from a metaphor is that they always use the words like or as. So both of them compare two things, but only the simile uses like or as. Personification. We've talked about this one before. Personification is giving an animal or an object human characteristics, so treating something that isn't a human like a human. Alliteration. It's the most words in the sentence have the same beginning sound, so you get the same effect throughout the whole sentence. And an onomatopoeia. This is a fun word to say. Onomatopoeia. An onomatopoeia is a word that is said like it sounds. Now, you might be wondering, what are some examples? Well, I've got you covered. Some examples include, for metaphor, John is such a pig when he eats. Well, I'm comparing John to the pig, but I'm not using the words like or as. This makes it a metaphor. If I was going to be talking about a simile, I might say, Emily's hair shines like a diamond. In this sentence, I'm comparing Emily's hair to a diamond, and I say they both shine. Now, this one is a simile because I use the word like. Personification. The wind howled against my front door. Now, does the wind really make a howling noise? Not really. That's kind of something that a human would do. Now, alliteration. The burly bear begged for some berries. Now, in this sentence, you can see there are some words that don't have all of the B sound. So the, for, some, those don't have the B sound. Not every word in the sentence needs to have the same sound, just most of them. So you get the effect by saying burly bear begged berries. They all have that B sound, and really, if you use this too much, it can get a little bit too much, if you know what I mean. And lastly, we have onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is a word that sounds like it's said. So, I splashed into the pool when it was my turn to jump in. Other examples of an onomatopoeia would be like crash and boom. Anything that sounds like how it would sound in real life. Alright, so we are going to practice finding some different literary devices or figurative language in this article. This article is called Big Burger Battle. Now, I can tell right away just by the title, Big Burger Battle, I'm using alliteration because each of the words say a B sound. So I know right away that this is alliteration. Now, the article says, who gets burger bragging rights? A meaty battle is sizzling among 3 states over the history of the hamburger. In Texas, lawmaker Betty Brown proposed a bill declaring Athens, Texas, the home of the hamburger. Wisconsin has also jumped right into the food fight. State Representative Tom Wilson argues that Seymour, Wisconsin is the place where the famous sandwich was invented. Not so fast, say the owners of Lewis's Lunch in New Haven, Connecticut. Established in 1985, the restaurant is maintaining its claim as the burger birthplace. It's well known and established fact that New Haven is the home of the hamburger, says the New Haven mayor John Stefano Jr. In fact, New Haven's claim to the hamburger is even supported and documented in the Library of Congress. Alright, so I found quite a bit of figurative language in this article. What do you think? Now, in our title we found some alliteration. I also found other types of alliteration in this article. Now remember, we said the sentence doesn't always have to have every word with the same sound. So in this one, there were a couple sentences that used alliteration but didn't have every word. So maybe it was just a phrase. So let me point some out. Burger bragging rights. That had a good alliteration to it. So you still got that B sound, and it added a little bit, but it wasn't too much. Let's see, where else did I find one? Home of the hamburger. That's a nice alliteration. And I also found burger birthplace. So those had some nice alliterations to it, and it didn't have too much. Alright, now I found a couple other different types of figurative language in this article. I found some personification. Did you find that? Well, let's look. In the first paragraph right here where it says, Wisconsin has also jumped into the food fight. Can Wisconsin really jump? The state of Wisconsin. Really? Can it jump? No, it can't. So, Wisconsin jumping is a personification example. So this is giving something that is not a human, Wisconsin, and giving it human-like characteristics like jumping. Now I also found an example of an onomatopoeia. Remember we said onomatopoeias are words that sound like how they would really sound in real life. Now, this one isn't a jumping out at you kind of thing, but in the first sentence it said, the battle is sizzling amongst 3 states over the history of the hamburger. Sizzling is kind of an onomatopoeia, I would think. Because when you say the word sizzle, you kind of get that sound of like how if you were really sizzling something, maybe like on the stove, you would get that same kind of sound when you say it. So that would be a good example of an onomatopoeia. Alright, let's see if you can do this on your own now. I have an article here called Loopy Loops. And in this article, there are some great examples of figurative language. Your job is to pause the video and find at least 3 examples of figurative language. Let's see if you can find them. Alright, go ahead and pause the video now. Alright, let's talk about it. What kind of examples of figurative language did you find? Now, when I look at this article, the first thing I notice is the title. And the title is called Loopy Loops. This kind of figurative language is an alliteration. Now, as I read the first paragraph, I don't really see any figurative language. But that's okay, because I know there's more in here. I'm going to scroll down to this next paragraph. And as I'm reading it, Saturn has 7 major rings. The loops consist of chunks of ice. See below. To consist is to be made of. The rings look smooth and flat in most pictures, like a CD. However, data from Cassini shows that the pieces of frozen water continuously crash into one another, like bumper cars. That makes for a rough orbit. I see 2 different examples of figurative language in here, and they're the same kind of figurative language. What was the type of figurative language that we used that compared 2 things using the words like or as? Was it perhaps a simile? Well, in this sentence, it says that the rings look like a CD. So I'm comparing the rings and a CD using the word like. Maybe this could be a simile. What about in the next sentence? Data from Cassini shows that pieces of the frozen water continuously crash into one another like bumper cars. So I am comparing the frozen water to bumper cars using the word like. This is also a simile. Great. Alright, so in the next paragraph, I don't really see any examples of figurative language. You could pick out this sentence right here. It says Saturn's rings, the moonlets cause Saturn's rings to ripple like waves. But to me that's not really a simile because I'm just explaining how the waves are rippling. I'm not really comparing two things. So really I wouldn't consider that a simile. But in the next paragraph, I found something awesome. I found an onomatopoeia. Boom! Electrical storms on Saturn can spark lightning bolts 10,000 times more powerful than those on Earth. This is in, let's see if I can spell this, Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia. Because it's a sound that sounds just like it would sound in real life. Alright, did you find all the ones that I found? Good job. Alrighty, now it's your turn, my friends. In the discussion post on Canvas or on notebook paper, your job is to create 3 sentences about any topic you want. But you have to use 3 different types of figurative language. So one sentence could be a simile, one sentence could be an onomatopoeia, one sentence could be personification. You can do whatever you want, and feel free to rewind this video and look back at the slide that talked about the different types of figurative language. Okay? Now, if you're using the discussion post on Canvas, when you post, you can see your friends' posts. But you can only see your friends' posts if you post something first. So, if you are posting on Canvas and you do post your sentences, feel free to comment on your friends' sentences and leave them some feedback. So, alright, have fun and good luck!